Hi there, my name is James Graham. I'm a playwright and writer of Punch, and this is BroadwayWorld Notes on a Script. So Punch is based on a real-life story that happened where I grew up, basically. I'm from a place called Nottingham in England, which you'll know from Robin Hood, Sheriff of Nottingham, all that stuff. It's kind of like a de-industrialised town, city in the north of England. And this real-life story happened about 10 years ago. It's kind of about the world of lads, working class lads, going out on a Saturday night drinking, and the culture, I guess, of what you might call toxic masculinity, getting into fights, and a guy called Jacob Dunn, whose memoir this is inspired by, he got into a fight, wasn't even really a fight, and with a single punch killed someone he saw in a bar. One punch killing, he didn't even know who it was, a young man called James Hodgkinson. And what this story tells is, I guess, the surprising journey that both Jacob, the killer, but also the victim's family went on together in a process called restorative justice, where basically the offender and the victims get together and process what happened, and it ends up in a surprisingly hopeful place, which is what inspired me to look at the story. The first words I wrote, this is about two and a half years ago now. God, the first words I think I wrote, I had no idea, probably the title, Punch, which I really struggle with titles. I come up with some terrible titles, but that just felt immediately, I just knew in my head that was what this show was going to be called before I even wrote the thing. And then, I'm a writer who has no flexibility in his brain. I have to start from the beginning. So I wrote the first line and I knew it was going to be set on the day the event happened. And I think the first line has probably never really changed. That's such a lie. It changed last week. I rewrote the line because we are adapting this British script. This is a show that opened in the UK last year and transferred to the West End. And we are adapting it to try and make it as accessible to an American audience as possible. I always get kind of nervous when you talk about the changes British playwrights have made for American audiences, because it sounds like we are like not dumbing it down, but we're going, what does an American audience need to understand this? It's actually not that at all. I mean, my experience on Broadway, I had a play called Ink at MTC, but the last time I was at MTC about 5-6 years ago about Rupert Murdoch's Empire. You know, like those audiences, they're like so smart, and you sort of have to up your game a little bit, and it's some of it's about cultural references, just going, even though I really want to celebrate the cultural specificity of my hometown and Nottingham, and not apologising for that in the way that great American plays come over to the UK and they're set in worlds and cultures with references. We've got no idea what they're about, but there's a universality to that specificity. So it's about celebrating Nottingham and that being an alien concept, I think, to the majority of our audience. But also just being inclusive, I guess. Like, you want to reach out and grab the audience's hand and lead them as kindly and as easily and seductively into your world as possible. And so we've been working with our actors in the room, and they've gone, oh, I think people will get that. And sometimes they've gone, I've got no idea what that means. And either you go, well, that's fine, I'm going to keep it, or you go, come on, James, just get rid of it and make it as smooth a transition into Jacob's world as possible. So it's that kind of thing. Yeah, and it's a constant navigation. And I'm speaking to you in the week of our first previews, which is so exciting. But that's going to be, the learning curve is going to be so steep, as we just, you if you're really honest, you feel when you lose an audience. And that's not even about, oh, they didn't laugh at that joke, or like something happens when you just go, oh my God, they're gone. And it might be for 3 seconds. And then they come back. But you have to really analyse and leave your ego at the door and go, something's just not working, and what is it? And you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing that script. So we're going to be doing that all through previews and talking to our audiences and learning what bits engaged and what didn't. The first line in this new American version is, I'm not going to be able to act, it's, woo, so it is a hot one, mate. I mean boiling today, I mean like wow. That is the line from Jacob, our protagonist, and he is, we find him on the day in question when this tragedy happens, and he's on Trent Bridge. Trent Bridge is a famous bridge in Nottingham over the river, and he's about to go out with his mates. And as usual for this guy, he'll be looking at getting into some fights, expressing himself or not expressing himself in a healthy way through drink and drugs and violence, in order to gain currency and validation, I guess, from his friends, which obviously ends up in a huge tragedy. And so begins Jacob's journey into change and redemption, learning how to be a different person and a better man. This first section, actually, I think has pretty much stayed the same, apart from little tweaks for Broadway to make it just as able to connect with an audience as possible. I think it's pretty much stayed the same for about somewhere since the first draft, but then loads of other bits, back and forth, always rewriting. And actually the very end, or towards the very end, there's, without giving it away, we are building to this moment where after lots of messages and letters and questions back and forth as part of the restorative justice process, the parents, David and Joan, finally get to meet Jacob, the person who killed their son. They get to meet in person, and it's a facilitated meeting whereby they can navigate their way through the horrible thing that happened and understand it better. And I don't think actually that's changed very much since I first wrote it. That was based on research by speaking to the people who were in the room, some verbatim text. But it was, I feel like I can say this in a non-boastful way. It's nothing to do with me, actually. It's a moment that when we did this play in Nottingham and then in the West End, the oxygen kind of leaves the room when these characters meet together. And I still get so impossibly moved by it, not because of anything I've done. It's entirely the production that our director, Adam Penford, has built, and just the idea of what that must have been like for those real people to, in the case of the parents, meet the person who harmed them the most in the world, and in case of Jacob, the person who he harmed, he took their son. And it's a really special moment for me. I feel so privileged to be able to address it. I get very moved talking about it. I feel very privileged to be able to put that on stage, and something happens to an audience people, you can just hear them. People start to go, and I think it's to do with the absolute incredible generosity and superhuman human spirit of the parents, because essentially they reach out and they basically save the person who killed their son as an act of them getting over their grief and helping him move on with his life as well. I find it very, very moving. I don't often try to sort of explicitly presume to enforce a feeling that I want the audience to take away, or a message. I think the best plays just ask questions and let the audience answer them themselves. But there's no doubt that for me, an awareness and an enthusiasm for a different kind of justice system, both in the UK and in the US, that doesn't just centre punishment and jail, prison time at its core. Obviously, there is a place for that, for violent criminals, for people who are dangerous. And I believe in justice. I believe in if you harm someone, if you hurt somebody, there has to be a consequence to that. But what's so incredible about this story is that it's this amazing example of how forgiveness can exist at the heart of our justice system, and it works. Jacob, the character in the story, would have absolutely gone into a reoffending cycle where he kept doing crime and going back in prison. And who does that help? What's extraordinary is the kindness and forgiveness of the people he hurt saved him and took him out of that system, and that benefits everybody. That benefits all of society. That benefits the taxpayer. That benefits the individuals involved. It benefits future victims that don't exist because he hasn't harmed them. And I think for people to take away that belief and that hope that there is a different way to conduct our justice system based on this incredible example, I would love that.